Hi everyone, and thanks so much for joining us today. We're here with Mladen Lukic. He's the GM of Travel Counsellors South Africa, and we're going to be discussing air access in and out of the country. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey Sarah, great to talk to you.
Great. Mladen, let's start at the very beginning. Maybe you could tell our viewers why air access is so important to South Africa's economy.
Yeah, sure. Look, I mean, I have to preface this with the fact that I have a particular perspective. I'm not I don't come from within the airline industry. I use their product to promote it to our customers, and I use it myself. I think perhaps the airline industry might have a different view, and certainly my perspective is informed by the need that I perceive for myself, for my business, and for our customers. I think one of the things that we always learn, and we have learned this in cycles as we have gone through various crises in the past, often involving our national carrier, is that when we are faced with lack of air options, all of a sudden we are talking about why air is so important, but it should be obvious to us. South African geography is such, and I've got a South African map over there. In order to understand the distances that we take for granted, all you have to do is to overlay South African map, or for example, European map or North American map, to understand that modes of transport in 21st century are not equal to the need that is required. We certainly don't have the luxury to have multiple choices when we need to travel between different regions of South Africa. I think we are seeing this now more than ever. Today and yesterday, the papers are full with the potential disruption of truck transport within South Africa, and many news outlets with shock and horror have now discovered that the only wheels working on the South African environment currently are the trucks, because there's a significantly reduced air transportation, there's a non-functional rail system. And only now there is a significant panic that if we don't prevent that, some movement of goods and services that we take for granted just won't happen. The distance is not the only reason why that is the case. Our geolocation is such that we are at a particular end of the world, so we are not within easy reach of both of our supplier base as well as our customer base. We are a resources-based economy, and resources-based economy requires global reach because it's not consumed within the boundaries of our country. And also something that we are seeing a reversal right now. For a number of years, South Africans who travel for leisure have emphasized international travel. Of course, we are now, and maybe we can talk about it in a moment, we are now seeing some of that rediscovery, but we needed to kind of get us to places where we are. With the situation that we have seen within our national carrier in December, we started seeing some of those reductions, and then COVID has really emphasized how difficult this is. I run a business that is very corporate based. So our client base prior to COVID the production was almost 80% dependent on our corporates. Most of our corporates come from a financial services, media services, and pharmaceuticals, and they are largely international in terms of their supplier base as well as their customer base. Their ability to travel is severely restricted, and their businesses are immediately restricted. It shouldn't come as a surprise that travel has been one of the most often spoken about topic during the lockdown stages. It shared prominence with alcohol sales and tobacco, which were very personally driven. Air travel was a serious restriction for the resumption of any life of activities, not just basic life activities, and we needed to make sure that is done. We are now in a situation that we have some resumption of some corporate and human activity, but we are unfortunately restricted by the travel restrictions that come with the second wave in Northern Hemisphere, particularly in Europe and North America.
Okay. So let's talk about the domestic landscape specifically. So we've seen a lot of changes over the last year. We've seen SA Express, SAA, BA Comair and Kulula all being in business rescue for the most part of a year. And then we've seen some new entrants. Are there any gaps that still need to be filled? How do you see the domestic air landscape at the moment?
Well, again, you know, my answers will be from the perspective of retail travel user. So probably this would also need to be discussed with the airline people. But my view of the current situation that we live in an interim stage. We are very fortunate that a number of local carriers have done a fantastic job to hold us through that process, because quite rightly, the dominant players of pre-COVID have all exited the market through their limitations in terms of business rescue activities. But we have seen FlySafair, we have seen CMA, we have seen Airlink, who have really taken this challenge up and really carried South Africa, well, and still do, to a larger degree, and that enabled South Africans to have some movement. I do think that once we see some regeneration of international routes, that is going to have to be re-looked at. A number of carriers right now, particularly Northern European carriers, have reduced or even stopped their services to South Africa. And those who are restarting it don't have traditional partners in place. Traditionally, most of the add-ons were provided either by British Airways and Kulula to a point, or South African Airways and South African Airways affiliated carriers, SA Express and Airlink. With majority of them not flying as yet, there is going to be a realignment. I also think that quite rightly so, the carriers, domestic carriers that are currently in play have and should have higher level of ambitions and appetites to take up some routes that were previously dominated by the two main brands that dominated Southern African skies. And I think that is going to be something that is going to be welcomed by the industry. We are already seeing that there are some routes that are being given prominence that in the past have been neglected. I think the competition between the three main hubs is going to be realigned, and there will be hopefully less politics in the decision-making process. Unfortunately, politics is a big part of airline industry because of the bilaterals that, and this is not specific to South Africa, it is worldwide, that allocation of routes does carry a certain level of influence from some of the government and government-aligned organizations that make some of those decisions. But I am encouraged with what we have seen so far, and I really commend the carriers that have really done to my mind, a really sterling job keeping us safe in the skies in the 7-8 months that we have been in this very difficult time.